All right, well, welcome to Really Political. I'm Chip Franklin. That's Tom Arnold. And man, there's so much to talk about since the last time we did this. Most notably, 34 convictions. What was your reaction?
Well, first I have to acknowledge that my son won Citizens of the Month this month in fourth grade. And I'll tell you, it's a big deal around here. You know, his sister has won it many times for second grade, but it's a big deal. So we're going to be celebrating hard. The convictions. I felt it was satisfying to me personally. You know, people want to say, well, this isn't the most important trial. This isn't, and they said that about the E. Jean Carroll thing too, and the Trump business trials. But I like the outcome. And, it's great that he can't avoid this anything in New York, which is great. And that's how it should be, because he's apparently going to avoid the more serious crimes. But I thought it was great. I love that the jury was all in favor of all 34. And I was up in Toronto filming Netflix, Arnold Schwarzenegger's Netflix series. And I happened to have a moment in front of a TV. And so to see Nicole Wallace get the information and those guys, in real time, that felt good. I'm sure I'm never going to forget it. It was a good feeling.
Yeah, I do a podcast with Frank Figluzzi. And
Frank.
Frank's a great guy. And I know, for me, my dad was a Capitol Hill police officer.
Right.
He's FBI. And, stop me if I've told this story before about, when we were kids going to see Tip O'Neill, and he took us out on the steps of the Capitol. And it was really to think back on that. And then I got to be honest with you, when they were reading those counts, I was kind of emotional because, having grown up there, as a kid, I worked on Capitol Hill, the whole thing, it really got me. And I think that, that listening to Fox and to other people, talk about Judge Merchan or Alvin Bragg or Letitia James or any of these, they forget that New York City is 45% Republican. Okay. There were two people in that jury that said, one said, I go to Truth Social for news. The other says, I watch Fox News exclusively. And it got me thinking, Tom, what if we could take MAGA and put them in front of, again, let me play this, because this is something Jon Stewart happened to say, which is very funny, but he talks about the difference way these guys talk on the street and the way they have to talk in a courtroom.
This is why the law and order right hates court procedures when applied to them. Courts are the last remaining guardrail that has a standard of evidentiary presentation. It is the last place where you have to prove what you say, and you see the difference in what they say out of court versus what they say in court. Here is Trump on the 2020 election out of court.
This is a fraud on the American public.
We know there was massive fraud. It was a rigged election, 100%.
Here are his lawyers in court.
This is not a fraud case. We are not alleging fraud in this lawsuit. We're not alleging that anyone's stealing the election.
Here is Rudy Giuliani pleading before the Court of Seasonal Landscapers. What happened there? It's a mix-up. He's pleading, but not in the actual court.
It's a fraud, an absolute fraud.
And what does Giuliani say about that in court?
If we had alleged fraud, yes, but this is not a fraud case.
It's not a fraud case in court, where I would need evidence. It's only a fraud case out there amongst the sod and the mulch, where I can say whatever I want.
That's very good.
Yeah.
I'd like to sit here for an hour and watch Jon Stewart. That's what I do.
Yeah, but we're both comics, and the heart of comedy is misdirection and irony and understanding, what's appropriate and when it's not. There are elements of that in a courtroom with a really good prosecutor or a very good defense attorney. One of the things that I found fascinating, and I'm pulling a blank now on the prosecutor, but when Michael Cohen was talking about that 1:39 phone call, and the prosecutor was saying there's no way that all this information could have come in there, so they did it. and he had the fake conversation in that time period. Those kind of theatrics, not theatrics, but that kind of presentation for jurors has always fascinated me. I
think it was Colangelo. I'm just guessing, because when I heard he was one of the prosecutors, I went, is he related to Jerry Colangelo from the Chicago Bulls? Everything for me has to go back to sports. I wonder if he's his son. And he went into being a lawyer instead of going into the sports world. Anyway, but yeah, that was very, I also think that the media did a good job of our side of the media anyway, of showing, number one, Trump saying, lock her up, saying the words, which he said he didn't say, but also Trump 9 or 10 times saying, if we can't have an indicted a president, that would be a constitutional crisis. She'd be down there talking about Hillary. Exactly what's going on now. But I think also we have to remember, Trump is crazy. Like, he's always been a terrible person. He's always lied.
And for people that don't know, you've known this guy a long time.
20 years. I've been to the Playboy Mansion with Donald Trump. He took me there to meet Kara McDougal, who was a big part of the trial, the proceed. He's like, hey, come with me after my sports show, best in sports show, period. Great show. He said, come over to the Playboy Mansion. I have a vodka or new vodka or tequila or something party for it. And I was like, I'll go over there with you, Donald Trump. And I went over there, was meeting him and Keith Schiller. And he said, I want you to meet my new girlfriend. I go, okay. She's a playmate. She's like Playmate of the Year. She's beautiful. And I meet her. And she is beautiful. Kara McDougal, very beautiful. And then he's like, oh, and Melania's here and my daughter. So let's all take a picture together. Kara McDougal, Melania, Ivanka, they all pose for a picture. And I remember thinking, this guy doesn't care. Yeah. This guy just doesn't care. And it's kind of funny when he's just that guy, that fake TV business man. But when it became time for him to be president, I said that's unacceptable.
Except that, you know what? I mean, I think that he got in trouble for worrying about something his base wouldn't have cared about anyway. Right. McDougal and Stormy. By the way, there's an attorney on LinkedIn named Stormy Daniels. I ran across her bio.
Oh my gosh. Well, anyway, I checked in with Keith Davidson, who I got to know because of some of this stuff. Keith Davidson represented both of those women at one time and was kind of the go-to guy if there's a little scandal. And Trump actually told Michael Cohen, before Michael and I were on the same side, to hire Keith to go against me. So I was talking about a guy that had been with Trump and Chuck LaBella. He was his body man. He worked on The Apprentice. He worked on Miss Universe. We knew him very well. And he'd been to Russia with Trump and came back and told us all these crazy stories. And then when Trump said he's going to run for president, I said, you got to come out publicly with this. And I started just hammering him on Twitter and trying to get a hold of him. And he got scared. And then Keith Davidson calls Marty Singer to say, you got to make Tom stop doing this. Marty Singer calls me and goes, they're going to sue you if you keep talking about. And I was like, fuck them. They're not going to sue me. But, you see these people. The bottom line for Trump, where he always screws up, always gets trouble, is he doesn't want to pay his bills. He's cheap. He's tight. He thinks he's above it, pays his contractors half in advance, and then when he's supposed to get the other half when it's done, he just doesn't do it. He did that with both of these women. And the Stormy Daniels, by the time I got to that, and he didn't care about Melania or anybody. Once he was elected, he was going to be like, fuck this, man. He just wanted to stretch it out. And all the stuff that people say on the Fox News about Hunter Biden's laptop, well, if that had been made public, it would have changed. I really believe that if this stuff had been made public with these women, with the payoffs, on top of the Access Hollywood tape, it would have been a lot harder for him to get elected because people pulled away from him right away, and then they all came crawling back. But I think that barrage of things would have been a deal breaker, and I think Hillary would have won. And I also think Michael Cohen, I'm glad he's doing his mea culpa because he was a big part of getting Donald Trump elected. Now, however he really was. He did that stuff. He covered for him. He lied for him. He threatened people for him. He went to Jerry Falwell Jr. and said, remember that deal with the pool boy and your wife and you? I've still got one of the pictures.
Let me ask you a question, Tom. Let me jump in there. So why didn't Trump say to Cohen, look, you do this time for me, you're going to get out. I'm going to get you a consulting job. I'm going to get you a 6-figure, 7-figure gig out of this. Is he that arrogant?
No, he did get him that. Here's the thing. He treated Michael Cohen like shit. Like when they were working together, he was so shitty. Michael Cohen's self-esteem was so low. He'd lower his salary. He'd do this. He treated him like a dog. And then once in a while he needed him. And so that's all Michael Cohen needed, because he bought into the Donald Trump stuff the same way Donald Trump does with his kids.
Or Rudy.
He's nice to him, and then he's always been really shitty to him. Maybe not the daughter, but he's always been shitty to the boys. So I don't know what his deal, but Michael Cohen, he got set up once Trump went to the White House with being a consultant for big pharma or big whatever, and I think he was due to make $6 million. So they're like, that's what we'll do for you. We'll do this thing. Because Trump is very good about paying off people that lie for him, and you won't cooperate with the authorities. I mean, it still goes on.
It's all mafia stuff. Yeah.
So Michael Cohen had that going. And then some people are like, but also the people that were in the White House with Trump didn't like Michael Cohen. So his chief of staff, the lawyer, the official White House lawyers are like, yeah, you can't do this guy. So you have to figure out something else. So I think that's what he got. He was devastated for not getting into the White House to be chief of staff or be something. And he was suicidal, literally. And the fact that the New York Bar Association called me to, they knew I knew him and said they have to. If a lawyer says they're going to commit suicide, jump off the Regency in New York, the top of the hotel, they have to reach out to people.
Was this after his conviction, Tom? Was this after?
No. Oh, wait a minute. Yeah, it was after his conviction. It was soon after. And I think Keith Davidson did an interview saying how literally suicidal was Michael Cohen was in Christmas 2016 or whatever it was. So, yeah, they got to check on that stuff. But, I thought ultimately I've always said Michael Cohen, I don't talk now, but he did a very good thing. And it was hard. And I like to feel I was a part of it, getting him to do it, putting him in a position where he had to do something, getting Trump riled up about him hanging out with me. And so I feel a part of it. And I think he came through, and he seemed to kept his composure. Mike Cohen gets a lot of shit. There's people on the left that just criticize the hell out of him, legal experts, about how he's not going to be a good witness. But the prosecutors were pretty brilliant. The way they, there was a case, and they brought it, and they laid it all out, and it made it hard for Trump.
Well, there are no virgins on Capitol Hill. I mean, and anybody that's ever worked closely will understand that. There's very little there. Let me ask you this.
Maybe Lindsey Graham, if there was going to be a virgin. Well, Tim Scott. Tim Scott is a virgin. He said that. He is a virgin. And,
you're talking the incels, though.
But he's not a virgin now with what he's doing for Trump.
Yeah.
Disgusting.
Let me play a little bit of well, first of all, since you're talking about Michael Cohen guarantees that this conviction is going to cost, and this also, Karl Rove said this as well. Wisconsin, he was very narrow in Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, and Michigan. A half a point between the two candidates, which blows my mind, but that's another story. And he guarantees that. And here's again, this is CBS in this past week since this verdict. This is a real short summary of some of the numbers.
Our new CBS News poll finds that 57% of Americans think the jury reached the right verdict, with virtually the same share, 56%, saying he received a fair trial. As more evidence of the partisan split in America, 96% of Democrats said the guilty verdict was the right one. So did 56% of independents. But 8 in 10 Republicans say the verdict was the wrong one.
Okay, so even though he's losing some Republican, they say up to 10% of the Republican Party may put their hands in their pockets on election day. I don't know, and I wouldn't count on that.
I believe it, though. No, I mean, because there are people that are like, I've got to go vote for him. I got to drive down there. I got to leave work. And they'll be like, okay, well, I'll just say I voted for him and I'm not going to do it. There has, a lot of women are, I don't understand the people that are like, he's terrible. I'm not going to, I'll vote for neither, as a protest, or, I'll hold my nose and vote for Trump after giving a soliloquy about how much they care about truth and morality. And then they're like, so somebody has sold them that Joe Biden is incredibly immoral, terrible, criminal, like Trump. And the Fox News has really pushed that hard. And it's just not true. It's not true.
They can't even articulate what it is that he's done wrong. I mean, listen to, coming up in a few minutes, we'll have the worst person in the world who was, actually it's called The Worst Person in the World, not named Trump. And this happened yesterday on Capitol Hill, and we'll get to that in a minute. But when you look at, for example, let's just take the case. When they say the case against Trump was unjust, and they talk about two things. They talk about the judge and they talk about the venue. Sure, Judge Merchan gave $15 to Joe Biden's campaign. But Donald Trump has Judge Cannon, who has delayed a trial. He's got two members of the Supreme Court who openly back him and backed January 6th in the insurrection, of course, being Alito and his flag, and Ginny Thomas, wife of Clarence Thomas, who was present at the mall on January the 6th. So obviously, when you want to talk about the trial, there's nothing in the trial, and they're going to bring it up on appeal. The only thing they can bring up on appeal is judges' directions to the jury, and I don't even think that will fly.
Well, also they had Judge Merchan had a panel look at before he did the case to see if he had a conflict of interest. So he put it back out there to the ethics people and the judicial. They said no. In a perfect world, you don't want anybody to give anybody, But Judge Merchan, his daughter works for Democratic causes, which is great. So maybe he's like, here's $15. I don't know how you get away with only giving $15 to a political candidate. That's how brilliant he is. I'd love to figure out how to do that. How do they even ask for that? Hey,
well, let me ask you this. Have you lived in New York before?
No, I spent a lot of time there.
Okay, you've been there a lot. So, I mean, when they complain about the venue, I have to laugh because to me, New Yorkers are the least impressed by either party. And the people that I've known when I lived there as a kid, I always found it to be, you want to talk about 8 million real strong, independent-minded people. That's New York. I mean, they all have their opinions, and they'll tell a politician right to his face or her face how they feel. I remember when Hillary tried to wear a Boston cap in Boston and came to New York and then wore a New York cap, and people just giving her so much shit. Yeah. I do think, though, that it's interesting to see.
Obama said he was both a White Sox and a Cubs fan. And I'm like, that's bullshit, man. You cannot be. That's impossible. So he tried to do that a little bit too.
But they're not real competitors in the same sense that the Yankees and the Red Sox. That's a totally different animal.
But still.
Yeah.
Come on.
So we now as we move towards the next big question, which will happen on July 11th, and that is the sentencing for Donald Trump. The question has to be, do you put him inside, and what would that look like? It would be unusual, I think. I think there'll be a lot of people that are hoping that Merchan doesn't sentence him to time, or maybe sentence him to home detention with a monitor, which would be the same thing in some sense, but he's not actually in jail. What's your sense of the best thing Merchan should do? Not towards the election. Two answers. What would be the best thing he should do as a judge in a case like this, from your opinion?
Well,
and then secondly,
the best thing.
Secondly, what will be the reaction if it is jail?
Well, the best thing he could probably do is, if Trump doesn't keep mouthing off and violating the gag order and challenging him and threatening him or his family or the jurors, then perhaps some other situation besides jail, because it's going to be a huge pain in the ass for the jail people. Right. Even if it was a weekend. I've done weekends in jail, and I've also done community service. I've had to put on the orange jumpsuit and go out here on the 405 with this hillside straggler and pick up trash. There's a lot of different things. It is funny to think of him doing some kind of community service. Go to subway, clean up.
Well, without his hair or spray tan.
Yeah. Yeah. No shit. You don't get any of your stuff, personal products. My sister had none when she was in prison. They had to get creative ways to do their eyeliner and do whatever. And so, but that takes some time. You can't do it a week. But a perfect thing. But whatever, if he violates all that stuff, you got to put him in jail. That's just the way. You can't go. He is getting preferential treatment already.
Of course, when I hear Fox News say a two-tiered system, I go, yeah, but not the way you think.
Yeah, not the way you say. They know there's two-tiered, but they're lying to you. But I think people say, well, if they put Trump in jail, it's a civil war. Trump's like talking about, but tough shit. It's not a civil war. Tough shit. And they've said that all along. If you charge Trump with this stuff, it's a civil war. It's the end. It's this, that. And I think those people know what happened to the people that did believe him on January 6th and went to do his dirty work for him, because a lot of them were in prison for a long time. And, word gets out. And his list of pardons must be massive. It was the last term. He just pardoned everybody close to him and a few. But now he's got thousands of people he has to pardon right away. I just don't see him paying attention to anything that much to get that list together, and he'll forget about it. And I want to say this too. He went down to what is the guys called that don't believe in stop signs? What party? Libertarian. Allegedly don't believe in stop signs or whatever. Any guy. He goes down there, and it was hilarious because a lot of them do not like him, and he kind of got into it with them. But then he started saying, because he wants the audience. He'll say fucking anything to anyone to get them to. And he's like, I will pardon this Ross guy that from Silk Road that created the whole drug network. And, a year ago, he said, I will, drug dealers, I will give the death penalty. He says that to one group of people here. And then the other one's like, I will pardon the biggest drug dealer that country's ever had. And although I do think
he appeared on stage in the Bronx with those two guys that are facing, one guy's facing life for drug dealing and murder.
Don't they vet those people? I'd be like, hey, but let's, anytime you're in the Bronx, you're like, let's see what the hell's happening here. But no, they're terrible people. And the fact that he will say anything, he will not criticize terrorists if they are going to vote for him or David Duke or anybody. He literally, and it's not just like a little bit. That's his thing over and over. So you see that. And so it makes the people, the Fox News are really working overtime to shout down anybody that, disagrees with Donald Trump. It's disgusting. But
let me ask you something though on that line. Okay. I don't know. I don't hang out with a lot of Republicans these days.
I did last week, by the way, all week with a Republican, Arnold Schwarzenegger. And even Arnold was saying, listen, man, when I was governor, the liberals hated me and now they like me. He goes, I think that's what Trump has done. He's brought the moderate Republicans. People are like, yeah, I miss that guy. Ronald Reagan, by the way, the Bushes were a solid family. I mean, that's the thing about what Trump has done. You kind of reevaluate the people that you hated before. You're like, yeah, I was wrong. This guy is the guy.
Well, it's, again, the classic argument, which goes back to Federalists and anti-Federalists, is the size of government. Mm-hmm. Republicans want it smaller, supposedly. Democrats want it, but that's all changed. Now, you mentioned libertarians and them booing him. I want to ask you about this slow erosion of support that we're beginning to see. We saw it with Romney, back in with McCain and others, that had been the traditional Republicans. Murkowski came out this week and said it. His appearance at this Libertarian thing, boy, did he get that wrong.
The Libertarian Party should nominate Trump for President of the United States. Whoa. That's nice.
Nominate Trump.
I love
he had to dig down deep to get that line. Like it wasn't,
But probably the one that impressed me the most, Tom, is Ken Buck. He was on Bill Maher's show Friday, and he's a conservative. Very much. I had Adam Kinzinger on with us with Frank Figluzzi a couple weeks ago, and I really like the guy. I like him
a lot. I like him. He's funny. He's funny. He's smart. He's good.
Well, this is what Ken Buck was. He was doing an interview on Fox. And it was about a 7-minute interview, but in the last 30 seconds, he really got to it, and he said I think a lot of Republicans are thinking.
There are a lot of things that went into the decision, but really we're at a time in American politics that I am not going to lie on behalf of my presidential candidate, on behalf of my party. And I'm very sad that others in my party have taken the position that as long as we get the White House, it doesn't really matter what we say.
Yeah, that was, because I think in our situation, whether it be Liz Cheney or whoever, you're like, well, what is that one thing? I don't agree with her on abortion. I don't agree with her on this or that or whatever. But this one issue that's so important to my country, we agree on. And, the fact that people step up and go, I'm going to lose my career doing this. Like a lot of those guys are just scared shitless of losing their career. So I do, he is solid about that because you can't be wishy-washy.
He actually beat off MAGA, and I should rephrase that. He when MAGA ran against him, he won 75% to 25%. So he didn't have to quit.
Right.
But what he did was he screwed Boebert, metaphorically. He left early, and so she wanted that seat. So she would have to leave her seat to run in the special election, and she didn't. So somebody else, this guy Greg Lopez, won, a conservative. So she's not going to get her seat in the fall. She's going to lose. She went to that district because she only won by 500 votes in the old district. It's interesting, and he did it, I think, to get her. But I do feel that there are Republicans, as we just started this show out, and you said this, that will say they voted, but won't vote for him.
Yeah. I think a lot, they'll say it to a poller. Somebody doing a poll, they go, yeah, I'm going to support Trump. And, a lot of the MAGA faithful, a lot of those guys probably can't vote, or they've never voted, or they don't know where to vote, and they'll be drunk.
You're right.
They'll be doing their shit, and they don't vote, And so there's that too. So my hope is that all of this stuff comes together. I have to say this about Bill Barr too. People complain about him on the left and on the right, and Fox love when he does something they agree with, they'll have the clips of Bill Barr, just those clips, because as you get older, especially in comedy, your views do change. And he also knows I can't be that. I just can't have a liberal eye. I want to get the other people to watch my show. That's what I want. It's about getting viewers. This is a show. It's show business. But they never say what Bill Barr thinks about Trump, because he's unequivocal. He hates him. He's terrible. He's never going to. They lead into him making fun of the far left, which is easy to do. And then they make it seem like, well, he's one of us now. And he's not. And I also saw that what's his name? Charlemagne the God, the DJ, was on a show. I don't know if it was on the
Breakfast Club, right?
Yeah, no, he's on the Breakfast Club. I've done that. But then he was on maybe Greg Gutfeld's show or something. And he laid it out too. Like he sat there and said, Trump is a threat to democracy, whatever. And the other Fox people were very nervous. Like, oh, you don't believe it. Yeah, he got very specific about the stuff Trump has written, the 2025 president. So, he's a very smart guy. He said stuff about Biden that people get mad about, but you can see where he lays it. It's smart. It's good for Biden to listen to guys like that because they're smart.
Yeah, I mean, race is always going to be a part of it. We're going to talk about that in a minute with the Caitlyn Clark incident, which is, I think, funny. And it's also, I love that women's sports are coming more to the forefront because, I mean, I've been watching fast pitch women's softball for a long time. I want to get to that in a minute, but I want to talk real quick about Fox News, because in my mind, MAGA would not have ascended had it not been for Fox News. Fox News is wholly responsible, Murdoch and everybody, with elevating
Rush Limbaugh. There's a few people.
Well, Limbaugh too, right? Limbaugh actually was, in the very beginning. I started in talk radio the same year he did, and watching just what he did and the things he said. Do you remember when he called Chelsea Clinton a dog? I mean, he crossed the line and nobody blinked. So he said, okay. And they just kept going. But listening to Fox.
He was high. He was high on fentanyl. And you can't blame him. We all do stupid shit when we're high on pain pills. So he could have went when he got sober, okay, all that bullshit, that was bullshit. That was the drugs talking. I'm actually a decent human being. He could have
Well,
done
you
that.
know, it's funny. Steve Ducey, who I knew way back in the day, right? Who is on Fox and Friends now. I think he's tired of seeing his son get beat up at these press conferences. You know, his kid is in the business, and it's hard. You know, I mean, when I first started in this, I was a lot more conservative because I didn't know. I was like 35 when I got my first. You know, I guess I was political, but you know, until you really dive in and you see, you know, well, now what's happened with MAGA's control over the Republican Party and the fact that they no longer represent. In fact, they come out and say it. This is not your Republican Party.
Yeah, but you know, the thing about Peter Ducey, the son, you know, during all the Georgia stuff that was going down before the Senate election and Trump, he went there live a lot, and he's hilarious. Like he was calling out. You could tell the crazy MAGAs, like he was. So he gets a promotion in his job where he has to follow a producer's instructions. So every time before they have press conference, they're like, you're going to ask this one question that's just for the Fox people. And it's a shitty question, but you have to sit there and do it. And
well,
so,
I bring that up.
You know,
I bring that up because, you know, Steve Ducey went after Comer hard. Remember? Well, like you guys just don't have evidence. And he was, and Kilmeade went after him on it, but he's like, where is the evidence on this impeachment? I think there's none there. Your laptop, you know, and how many times do we hear Gates and others talk about this? They're still talking about it, right?
I mean, how perfect is it, though, that Hunter Biden's on trial this week, right after the Trump conviction, right after it's all rigged, the president's son, the first son or daughter of a president in history, is on a federal trial about gun charges. So the whole argument that they only pick on us, but they keep saying it, you know, and it just makes them look stupider and stupider and stupider.
Well, yeah. I mean, when I watch Fox, and there's a friend of mine that has you should follow her on Twitter called Decoding Fox. And she does
I follow her. I've communicated with her.
She watches it all, and she's really good. This is a segment that I picked up from her.
By the way, she gets a lot of shit, man.
Of course,
those MAGA people threaten her and do all this bullshit. I got a lot of
respect. JoJo from Jurors. You know JoJo from Jersey? Yes.
Good
friend of mine.
Very cute. I like her a lot. She's very
just
cute.
Smart. You know, my wife, half the times will come. I tell her this all the time, that my wife sends her tweets to all her friends. And I said, a lot of famous people know who you are because I hear them talking about you, Joe. And she's a
good community. Listen, she's attractive. She's funny. She's smart. And she's a good communicator. And, you know,
she's a mom. You don't fuck with moms.
Right.
You know, I mean, I think both of us know that. Watch this short bit from Fox when they start talking about calling Trump, how Biden is wrong to call Trump a convicted felon.
For the first time ever, he referred to him as a convicted felon who essentially snapped after he lost in 2020. Some of the campaign remarks quoted include this. Folks, the campaign entered uncharted territory last week. For the first time in American history, a former president that is a convicted felon is now seeking the office of the presidency. This isn't the same Trump who got elected in 2016. He's worse. That's different than Friday when he kind of danced around it, never alluded to that. But as we said on the couch and have been projecting for a while, if he were convicted, and he was, they're going to hang convicted felon around him. And every time they talk about him, it's going to be like a brand name.
And believe it or not, I got this in the New York Times. I didn't realize this, but there's so many convicted felons out there that maybe they had an addiction, or they feel they were unjustly charged, or they had an indiscretion in their younger life. And they feel as though, you know, not being able to vote, even though the president can vote in Florida, not being able to vote, not being able to travel to certain places, this is a skull they live with. And the number's like 70 million. And when you start ripping the president, you're a convicted felon, this is a question now, are you alienating a lot of those people who say, this case doesn't make any sense?
Yeah. By the way.
Okay. That's the best thing I've ever, that the 70 million convicted felons who they don't even want them to earn the right to vote afterwards. I want to say this about them. Foxes, they always do this with Biden. They're like, hey, he promised to bring the country together. He said he was a unifier, not a divider, and he has failed. Well, he has failed because of Donald Trump and MAGA and all you idiots. That's why he's failed. Trust me, Joe Biden, everything about Joe Biden says that he's a unifier, he's a compromiser. He really cares about the operation of government being good for the people, getting things done. And then that's one of their last things is, yeah, well, guess what? He promised to bring the country together. And yet he criticizes Trump for being a felon. So how can you bring the country together if you
pretty sweet? Yeah. You know, I think about like, you know, some of what the campaign is going to look like over the next 4 or 5 months. And I hear Trump talking again, trying to get black voters in the Bronx by bringing these two thugs up. I mean, you could have brought up, I don't know, a Nobel laureate or a painter or somebody that really is respected by people. But instead,
they wouldn't be up there. Let me tell you, those people would not. John Legend isn't going to go, I decided to be MAGA. I'm going to go throw. Yeah, really talented people, really thoughtful people do not support Donald Trump. That's just a fact. You know, look at the level of entertainers they have that are MAGA. And there's no comparison. I mean, I love Robert De Niro. I love that 80-year-old Robert De Niro, who is New York, went down there in front of the trial and put it out there because that does him no good in his career. He gets threatened. He gets this. And he put it out there with, by the way, with a couple of officers from January 6th, Michael Cohen and Big Harry Dunn behind him. So there's a lot going on. And he put it out there and he got into it with people there. You know, but he also said, New York, we accept clouds, we accept this, that. But this guy is not New York. And it's really, really true.
I love it when on the five, Gutfeld said he's washed up, and Jessica Tarlov goes, he just got an Academy Award nomination, Greg. How many do you have?
He's so great, man. I genuinely will watch her and I'll do some fast forwarding, but she's so good that I'm surprised they haven't let her go. Because she's so good. And she withstands this yelling with Jesse Waters and Gutfeld, little Gutfelder screaming at her, you know, and she waits a minute. He's like a mom with her little babies. Gives them a second. And then, you know, and I have to say that Judge Jeanine Pirro, she is, they talk about opinion at Fox and then journalism. Well, she's was a journalist with Shannon Breed sitting out in front of the trial, giving her opinion, giving her thoughts, legal advice, and never did the crowd say, Donald Trump pardoned my husband. Below. He should say it every time, like, Jim, before I start sharing, Donald Trump, like on CNN, you go, we're a part of HBO. That's the parent company or whatever. Yeah, Donald Trump pardoned my husband. So everything else I'm going to say is bullshit.
Yeah. Well, and the truth is that you can just look at what they've said in the past and see how they lie. You know, I mean, Hunter Biden has obviously been their poster boy for the last 5 years because there's nothing else on Biden that they can say. When people talk about the economy, you go, on what metric is Trump's economy better than Biden? Because every metric that the CBO uses and anyone else, you know, GDP, unemployment, you know, inflation, all these numbers show that Biden has been successful.
And then compared to other countries, we have the best economy in the world.
Right now.
Yeah. We also pump the most oil in the world ever. Those are just but those are, but I have to say this about Hunter Biden. You know, I'm a big a fan of his. You know, I'm in recovery and he is killing it. He's so good. But they started on Hunter Biden like they could break Hunter and Joe Biden up. Like, we'll make him toxic. His dad will abandon him. There's nothing about Joe Biden that would ever, he'd never consider abandoning his son. He wouldn't abandon his dog. His German Shepherd bit 35 Secret Servicemen in the White House before Joe Biden's like, okay, he's going back to Delaware or whatever. So there's nothing about, and Hunter Biden, to his credit too, they're like, he's a drug addict, he did this, and then he's like, hold my beer. I'm writing a book about myself. And it's way worse than anything you guys have ever seen. I'm going to own it all so that you assholes don't go, I got something on Hunter Biden. Well, guess what? They don't have anything on Hunter Biden because he put it out there. And that's the way to do it.
Yeah. All right. Let's talk for a second about Caitlyn Clark because.
Yeah. By the way, I'm an Iowa Hawkeye. I'm just going to tell you, I'm an Iowa Hawkeye.
Okay. I love her. So we're going to be on the same page on this.
Caitlyn Clark, she's great. Go ahead, talk.
So if you guys haven't seen this, I'm going to show it to you right now. She's playing in a game the other night. She is a young kid. A lot of these players have played a long time. Muscle memory, knowing how, in basketball especially, you know, she knows where she is on the court. Everybody knows where they're supposed to be. And just for the record, if you watch NBA and then watch women's basketball, you realize, oh, they play it the way it's supposed to be played. They pass, they move. It's a totally different game than what the pros play. So yeah, there's some resentment, but you watch this and tell me what should happen to this. I've forgotten the woman's name that fouled her, but let's watch it real quick.
Mabry doubled off to Carter. Her jumper is good. Kennedy Carter now with 12 points off the bench. And then the lay from Boston as the officials are going to take a look at what just transpired between Carter and Clark.
Okay.
Well, okay. Yeah. Number one, it looked even worse from the other camera angle in front. What do I think about it? I think, you know what? We got to have John Sally on here. He was a member of the Detroit Pistons Bad Boys, 1988.
Rick Mahorn.
Yeah, Rick Mahorn. Rick Mahorn, you know, I will say they should get someone in there to protect Caitlyn Clark, an enforcer, because Rick Mahorn was that guy. Except the great thing about Rick Mahorn is when they were just practicing, he'd be like that with Sally. Like, I'm going to beat the shit out of you if you don't get it. If you don't get into a fight in this next, like he'd say that on the bench, you're going to get in a fight with me. We're going to fight these guys in the next play, or else I'm going to beat shit out of you. So it does, you know. Caitlyn Clark is. I like seeing the mixing up of women. I've always known. I grew up in Iowa. I know women are tougher than hell. Our athletes are. Female athletes are tough. They do rodeo. They wrestle. University of Iowa has a women's wrestling team. So being from Iowa, you know, oh, she's a tough chick. Because
let's go back up. So first of all, she comes into the WNBA and attendance for the Fever, the Indiana Fever, through the roof. They've sold more tickets in 5 games than they did all last year.
Yeah.
Okay. And so it's good for WNBA. However, if I'm a WNBA player and I've been playing in the shadows this long, and this kid comes up, I'm going to introduce myself. It's not Rudy Tomjanovich hitting Kermit Washington, or whether it's the other way around. It's not that kind of violence. She gave her a shove. Yeah, sure. There've been a foul. Yeah, man, they can even call it a technical like they did. But, you know, in the press conference, she goes, "It's a physical game." I loved it. She didn't say, you know, and also she's kind of like Steph in a way. She's not going to be. She'll go in the paint. And Steph did a lot. Steph actually got a lot more rebounds than people thought. And if you don't know, I'm talking about Steph Curry, the Golden State Warriors all-time leading three-point shooter in the history of the game. She's kind of got that same sort of approach. And it's a physical game. And so when we get physical with people, it makes it a little harder for that finesse. That's just part of the game. That was if that had been done in the paint with a lot of people around, it wouldn't have been a technical.
Well, here's the thing too. But here's the thing too. Caitlyn came from the national championship college game right into the pro. Like there's next year we'll start in the fall, we'll start preseason. Right. Like it was on. She's done a great job. She's done an amazing. I think they won that game. That's where the gal got technical Carter by 1 point. So, you know, there's also this thing where you don't want to be the second person. Somebody starts something. You don't want to go back to them because that's who the ref.
They catch the responder.
I tell my kids that all the time. But Caitlyn Clark, that was a foul, but she's also very good, like the men of soccer, basketball, that they know how to flop. Like they know you get hit a little bit and you're like, I'm going to take advantage of this so that the ref sees it. I'm going to go down to the ground. I've seen
they call technicals on that now, though, Tom.
Yeah.
If you flop, they actually changed the rule a few years back. So, you can't quite flop. But you know what we haven't mentioned yet is race, because it's Stephen A. Smith, as opposed to McAfee and others that comment on sports, have brought up race. And I don't see it as race at all. Yeah. There's a predominantly African-American WNBA. When they see a white girl come in and she gets, hundreds of millions of dollars deals already. If I'm one of these kids, young women in this league, my first thought is, how can I get that? She is going to raise my paycheck, right? It's fair or unfair. It's patently unfair in theory that a white person comes into what is traditionally an African-American, predominantly African-American game. But, I think it's good that we're all talking about this again. I don't think there's any racism there. I think that there's black players on both teams that are going to protect her. And she's, I just feel.
I think here's the thing. When you're an athlete and you've got to get it up every night for a freaking game, however many games they play, that's a lot. And whatever you can put inside of yourself, and they did it with Larry Bird, obviously. Oh, this white boy is not going to And then it turns out Larry Bird is a complete badass. He didn't complain about it, but, John Sallett tell you, he's the best player that he ever played against. He talked more trash than any player in the NBA.
He would go up to the other team's coach on the sideline and saying, "You got a white guy covering me?"
Right.
Seriously?
Right. But also he backed it up.
Yeah.
Caitlyn Clark's she's not a whiner. She's not a complainer. Lisa Bluter taught her well, her coaches. She's tough. She's a rookie. And I do like Diana Taurasi said, when she's a rookie, she's going to watch out.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's good. That's good, because you don't want rookies showing up the veterans that in any job or sport or whatever, and it's just making her better. It's just making her better than the other player, Carter, who actually was suspended another time for fighting her own teammate. Like in 2021, she actually got kicked off the rest of the season from her own team. Well, so got a little history of this. Mixing it up stuff.
Perhaps one of the biggest rivalries, one-on-one rivalries outside of tennis in major sports was Larry Bird and Magic Johnson. At my wedding in 1987, in the living room, the finals were on. I got married on May 30th, and my 37th the other day. And we were in there watching it. My wife was so mad, but it was Bird and Johnson in the NBA finals. People don't know this story. You probably know it. You saw the documentary. When Magic was diagnosed HIV positive, the league, everyone turned their back on him. Everybody, and Larry Bird's mom said, invite him here. They invited him out to their house in Indiana, and they were already friends. But nobody talked more shit than Bird, and Magic will tell you all about it. They talked it all the time. But outside the lines, gentlemen, and
they knew they were in it. They were good together, fighting, going against each other. And I'll tell you, these guys, they need to bring more people to the sport, the WNBA, like any sport. And, people with Larry Bird, when that was going, first of all, there were no black guys in the NBA. First, they were not. Then they started bringing them in a little bit.
Dr. J
and they realized, this is a good thing, the quality. And so if you're like, I got to figure out a way to root for my team. Okay, he's a white guy like me. Usually we aren't such good athletes, but this guy, so there's no problem with that with the Caitlyn Clark or whoever. You got to build the excitement, and people are rough with her. You kind of build that. She seems to know what she's doing and getting them to hit her first, whether it be the young gal from LSU or whatever, like them stepping out. That's a real talent to get people so mad that they're going to do something stupid that will help your team. They're going to hurt their team, and they're going to help us, because it is really about winning. And I believe they won that game by 1 point, 71-70 or something. So that's at the end of the day, that is the most important thing.
The one thing I love about sports is that it's all based, there's no nepotism. You got to be able to pull it off. If Caitlyn Clark can't score and can't make a difference in games, she'll find herself doing something else in life. And that's the one thing I love about this. And
well, the nepotism, I think there's a reverse nepotism. Possibly. Like I hear so much about Bronny James, LeBron James' son, like extra hard before even anybody had any idea of how talented he was or anything, saying, oh yeah, they better not draft him, or they better draft him. So here's a kid that's a college student and going through all this stuff. And also it's hard for the dad, because, as a dad, you're like, I'd like my son to work with me. The history of America, it's been father and son or mother and daughter or whatever. So that as a dad, that's a dream that, boy, they could do what I did. Maybe I have a little time with them. So that's a dream. But people have so many stupid opinions about that one way or another that, I like to find out that somebody does very well. They're like, did you know who his dad was? I go, no. And then find out that, I'm like, holy shit. Yeah. Like this, Jeff Burrows, I believe is his name. He passed away last week. The kid that was the World Series All-Star and
he was the first $100,000 bonus baby, Jeff Burrows. I remember that because I was a kid.
Yeah. But his dad, I didn't know till I watched all the stuff about him passing that his dad was a major leaguer too. I think he played for the Braves. Like, his dad had that. His dad coached him. You know,
well,
so I love
the number one
hearing stories
prospect in baseball, this kid, Matt Holliday's kid, Jackson Holliday in the Orioles organization, you know, the pressure on that. Poor kid came up and he was 2 for 35 and then went back down to the minors. And he was all
how
the
could Matt Holliday, how is he old enough to have a kid that's in the major league? How old am I? That's what I think. Because I watch those guys. They're oh yeah. And now suddenly their kids are in the major league. Like, how old am I?
All right. Before we get out of here on Really Political, again, with Tom Arnold, I'm Chip Franklin. It's time for something new. The worst person in the world, not named Donald Trump. And this happened yesterday on Capitol Hill, or the day before. Maybe, no, it was yesterday, I believe. No, the day before. It's not important. But this is a person who is, without a doubt, in my opinion, the greatest blemish on the House of Representatives in my lifetime, and on humanity possibly as well. And of course, I'm talking about Marjorie Taylor Greene. I've been calling her Dairy Queen for like 2 years, and Eric Swalwell picked it up, and he calls her Dairy Queen now. I think I said that on one of our last shows. It makes me feel
I like bad Bill Butch body. Crockett called her that thing after
or you could call her Cracker Barrel, which is another good one, or Waffle House.
Don't insult Cracker Barrel.
I'm not insulting Cracker Barrel.
God damn it.
All right, so this is what she said. Dr. Fauci, again, an NIH genius. Yeah. We all recall, you know, everybody was pushing back on the mask mandates. And in fact, I don't want to even say the C word or the P word about what happened, because we get dinged on YouTube. And so I don't want that to happen. But we all know
Dr. Fauci helped save my life. Because when I got COVID, you know, without the vaccine. So, and he's done it this is the most absurd example of someone who's been a public servant, really put himself out there, and then get these MAGA crazy Ron Paul, Marjorie Taylor Greene bullshit. But it really shows, like, I thought that she showed her ass, which is just thinking about it's disgusting. But this was so over the top that even.
Well, let's watch it. It's not very long. But I just took a little segment of it here. Is that all right? Okay.
Yeah. Do you think that's appropriate? Do the American people deserve to be abused like that, Mr. Fauci? Because you're not doctor. You're Mr. Fauci in my few minutes. No, I don't need your answer. I want to talk about this right here.
Mr. Chairman,
Fauci,
objection.
Objection. I reclaim my time. Mr. Raskin.
Gentlelady will suspend.
Mr. Chairman,
point of order.
Just in terms of the rules of decorum, are we allowed to deny that a doctor is a doctor just because we don't want him to be a doctor?
Yes, because in my time, that man does not deserve to have a license.
That was Jamie Raskin, if you heard it. Just to give you an example.
Right.
Yeah, just give you an example of how insane she is. This is some stuff she said in the past.
Have you guys been following 4chan, Q, any of that stuff? Anybody? It's an anonymous person. All right, so Q is a patriot. We know that for sure. I mean, is it going to be true that the child pedophilia in the elites in the Washington, D.C.
plane that crashed in Pennsylvania and the so-called plane that crashed into the Pentagon? It's odd. There's never any evidence shown for a plane.
Anyway, yeah, the insanity is
it's so stupid. She's even, for a person, a conspiracy person, she's so stupid she can't even pronounce words. I mean, if her boyfriend loves her or family, they would tell her not to talk, because every time she puts shit out there, it makes me feel stupider just now listening to it. It's not like I don't know women like that or men like that are that stupid, or that there are people in my family that are that fucking stupid. I'll tell you right now, but I don't have to hear them talking, and they certainly don't have a position of power. I mean, it is. I mean, she was so stupid at that hearing. Trump is probably bad. Like, she went a little too stupid for him, even. Like, he likes stupid. He likes liars. But he's like, yeah, that could look bad on me. that thing.
I don't know. I mean, I know she has her district has a 14% high school graduation rate.
Yeah.
14. Detroit at its worst had a 16. So,
okay.
I mean, So anyway.
Okay, but it's not even. Let's not blame the schools for her. I mean, she's got it. She's off and she has money. That's the thing. She's had successful business. She has money. She went on a vacation that was $1,500 a night to Puerto Rico with her dipshit boyfriend last week. So there's really no excuse for her. So again, Dr. Fauci is a great American. He has done he's helped save millions of people's lives. That's all he's done.
Yep.
And for these assholes to think we're going to put him down personally, they think that's okay, and for him to get death threats, and we're going to threaten to imprison him. What kind of disgusting people are these? Donald Trump could not become president. That if they're a part of that, everybody that's a part of it with him has to leave their office. Say we have to vote them out because they are disgusting. They're anti-American, disgusting.
Okay, so I got to tell you this. So last night I stayed up a little late, and I was just going through streaming channels, and I came across True Lies with you and Arnold, and great movie. That was a really fun film. I'd forgotten how much I enjoyed that.
It holds up. They don't all hold up, I'll just tell you, but it holds up pretty well. And it's funny because on FUBAR, we kind of, as soon as we started getting into the scene, there's a little back and forth, and it kind of lights up Arnold a little bit, and they're like, you got to do more of these because they have a little the stuff that's not in the script, just kind of our that's how we were. That's how we were, and that's a lot about our real life, True Lies, and continued since then, and which is shocking. That was 30 years ago, man. We were talking about 30 freaking years ago, but I'm so grateful that I was in that movie and got to know Arnold and Jim Cameron and Jamie Lee Curtis and Bill Paxton, the great Bill Paxton. And so what a great opportunity. I had no big idea it was such a big deal when I did it. I was stupid. So I didn't care. I wasn't worried. I'm just going to have fun with this. I'll ad-lib a little bit. And now if I would have thought about, oh, this is the most expensive movie ever made, and they're taking a shot with me, and that could ruin the movie if it doesn't work out. I might have been more nervous, but it was a great 7 months.
Well, you're a really interesting guy, Tom. I mean, I wished looking back and now watching these, and after talking to you, I had an opportunity once to fly cross country on a seat next to Sidney Lumet, and the amazing director of everything from Murder on the Orient Express to my favorite movie, The Verdict. And listening to him, we got talking about movies, and he loved talking about it. And the thing he said to me, he goes, you know what my job is? My job is to capture mistakes. And I love that. Everybody thinks of a film being within these parameters, you can still have lots of room for humanity. And that's the way he described it. And I was thinking of that when I was watching you, because and you mentioned this funny, there was a tremendous joy that comes through that film of people, and I think part of it is that, that Arnold and you that had chemistry. Jamie Lee Curtis is a consummate pro. Who directed that?
James Cameron. Cameron, dude.
I didn't know that.
And he's the one that insisted he was going to leave it. He's going to leave Fox Studios if they didn't approve me being cast, and he's going to make it a Paramount. He's like, well, guess what? We don't approve Tom Arnold. He goes, well, that's bad news because now I'm leaving you guys. I'm not making a movie here at Fox. I'm going to go down the street and make it a fucking Paramount. That's really what he said. And they're like, okay, we'll approve him on a kind of a probationary time. But I love filmmakers that love other filmmakers, that respect the art that other people before them, during them. And Cameron took the first cut of True Lies over to England and showed it to Stanley Kubrick. He wanted to know everything about the movie. And it took him hours to watch it because he would stop and go, how did you do this? How did you do that? Stanley Kubrick. I can't even pronounce his name.
You got it
right. He sat down and watched my freaking movie. So that's whatever people say that I'm a talentless hack, liberal, whatever. Let me tell you something. Stanley Kubrick didn't watch your fucking movie, idiot. That's for damn sure.
All right, so we're going to do this. We got another edition next week, and we're going to try to bring in somebody from Capitol Hill and talk a little bit, some ABCs of politics, and of course you're going to at some point we got to get Arnold on with us if we can do that. That would be great.
Yeah, we'll do it. He's very busy right now up there.
It sounds like it. It's a busy time, Yeah. Anyway, all right, TomArnoldComedy.com. Check it out. And you and I got to do a comedy show. We've been talking about this too. So.
That'd be great. I need the money, Chip. So I'm up for whatever it takes. I'm up
all right, pal. Good to see you again.
Buddy.
Thank you so much, guys. All right, and that is Really Political with Tom Arnold. I'm Chip Franklin. Check us out next week on Really American Media. Till then.